L'chaim, I made a blessing earlier. I'll take a sip of my tea.
Yeah. Coffee.
Also, we're not going to be having the Wednesday class tomorrow morning.
Oh,
I have to take Mendel to the dentist.
oh, that sounds like that fun.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Brett's here just in time. Okay. Uh, Wait, why don't I see her? Oh, there we go. Okay.
I was curious. There's that other Chabad that's in that little mall with the store.
Mm-hmm.
How come they're two separate? Is that connected to the big one on 44th, or is it a separate one?
They're separate. That one is focused more on Israelis.
I see. That's what I was wondering. Why they have two separate ones, like
Yeah.
stones to half a mile
If I'm, yeah,
or
no,
less?
not even half a mile. It's across the
Yeah,
street. Yeah.
yeah.
If I understand correctly, they began together, and then one of the one of the members opened up something for Israelis. I understand that there was at some point some politics between the two, which of course, we all know the story of the Jew who comes to the island, gets shipwrecked, comes to an island, and he's walking around together with the other people, and he meets a Jew on the island, and the Jew greets him and says, "Oh, shalom aleichem, so nice to meet you. Let me show you around the town." And he's showing them around, and he says, "You, by the way, you should know I'm the only Jew in this whole island." And he shows him, and he shows him this is one beautiful shul, and then a second beautiful shul. And the visitor says to him, "I don't understand. If you're the only Jew on the island, why do you need two shuls?" He says, "Oh, this is the shul that I pray in, and this is the shul that I won't step foot in."
Well, I don't know if you heard about this several years ago. There were, this is a true story. I think it was Iraq. There were only two Jews left in the entire country, and they
Okay.
couldn't stand each other.
Oh, wow.
They just never talked to each other.
The only two Jews in the entire country. That's crazy. Okay, let's start with our blessing of learning Torah. Baruch atah
Lord, I don't
Adonai
know.
Eloheinu
Neinu,
melech
Melech
haolam
Haolam,
asher
Asher,
kiddushanu
Kiddushanu,
b'mitzvotav
Mitzvotav,
v'tzivanu
Mitzvanu, Al,
al divrei
Divrei,
Torah.
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 Who's that other voice? Who's that other voice?
Who, Brett?
Hmm?
Brett is on the line?
Oh, he's online. That's why I couldn't see him. I see. Okay.
Okay. Wait, what? No. Is it? 1 second. How do I stop share? Share my screen. Here. Okay, let me zoom in over here and scroll across. Okay. Is everyone able to see my screen?
Hmm.
Some of
Okay,
it,
so where
Yeah,
I
a little bit
highlighted,
on the left side is cut off a bit.
yeah, I zoomed in so it'll be easier to read. We'll go down and we'll get to the next column. So we read until where I have highlighted here in blue, and now begins the real discussion. We were talking about hearts of palm and what is the correct blessing of hearts of palm. And so there are many different considerations. Um, so one conclusion that we came to last week, not regarding hearts of palm, but regarding flour, is that if there is an entity, which is an end product, meaning you have the fruit as it is, and then you have the fruit as it is intended to be. For example, olives. You have the olive and you have the oil. The oil is the intended final product of the olive. The wine is the intended final product of the grape. So olives and grapes on over olive oil, well, not really over olive oil, but over wine, we have a special blessing that is made. When it comes to wheat, the final product of wheat would be bread, the intended final product, and therefore over bread we say a special blessing. But when it comes to different kinds of fruits and vegetables, if they're not usually eaten raw, what blessing do you make on them in their finished state? And if they are usually eaten raw, but you take them and put them into a different state, for example, flour before it becomes bread, or dehydrated mashed potatoes before they become Pringles, what blessing would you make then? And so the answer that we came to was that we make the blessing Shehakol, the blessing that everything came to be by his word, because that is not the plant as it grew, and that's not the end result of like a potato. It's in a separate form. So now the question is, um, the hearts of palm, is it considered fruit or is it considered wood? So if it's considered wood, would you make the blessing who brings forth fruit from the ground? Or would you say the blessing of Shehakol, the catch-all blessing by whose word things came to be? For some reason, it's a little bit hard for me to read like this. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, and I hope are you still able to read it?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're on the right column, second paragraph, additionally. Even if one were to consider hearts of palm to be a fruit, so let's say that you want to say that the hearts of palm is considered the fruit of the tree. Is the palm considered a tree? Whether palm trees grown for their hearts are considered trees according to halacha, Jewish law, is questionable. Why? Because let's look at how they're made. The current practice of harvesting hearts of palm involves cutting the entire trunk of the tree, and a new tree grows anew from its roots annually. This may be at odds with the Gemara's halachic definition of a tree, as will be explained. The Gemara, which we're going to get to in a few weeks probably, on page 40a, defines a tree as a plant whose gavza remains. The question is, what does gavza mean? But the gavza remains and produces additional fruit after the first fruit has been removed. So Rashi says that gavza means the branches of the tree. So if the branches of the tree do not endure from year to year and produce new fruit, it is not a tree. So if the branches get cut off every year, then it's not considered a tree. Because in order to be considered a tree, the branches have to remain from year to year. So, for example, banana dies every year and grows anew. So that would not be considered a tree because the branches die and regrow. The Rosh, however, understands the Gemara as referring to the body of the tree. He says Gavza does not mean the branches. Gavza means the actual trunk of the tree. According to the Rosh, therefore, any plant which regenerates from its roots and does not need to be replanted yearly can be classified as a tree. Therefore, according to the Rosh, a banana tree which sprouts up on its own accord every year, I guess, would be considered a tree. However, the Rosh adds an additional criterion that the tree's leaves have to come out from its branches. So maybe banana is not the banana tree, the leaves come off of the branch, right? Almost similar to a palm tree.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
A
It
plant whose
seems
leaves come from its roots is not a tree. Let's look what a banana tree looks like.
it seems like they're just kind of pulling definitions out of the air and saying, you know, I mean, if you ask a horticulturalist Is a banana tree a tree? They'll say yes. And is a palm tree a tree? They'll say, of course. If you ask a scientist if these are trees, I'll say yes. Now, I don't know what the scientific definition of a tree is, but it's consistent. They seem to be saying, well, here's a tree as I know it, and a palm tree isn't like the tree that I know, therefore it's not a tree.
So
Types of
let's look at
trees.
this again. Let's look at this again more clearly. Just trying to see. I have no idea how the banana tree works. It looks like the leaves of the tree are the trunk of the tree. It looks like there's no branches really.
Well, what about this one on the second line?
This
Oh, wait,
one?
it's down there. There. Yeah, okay. There's a bunch of bananas here on the first one here. Well, I pointed to stupid me, but there's a bunch of bananas on the first big row, the first row with the bigger pictures on the first one.
This one that my mouse is over?
Well, yeah, that one too. I was looking at the first one in that row.
The first one in this row. So let's look at the first one in this row. And it seems like the leaves don't come from branches. It seems like the leaves are the trunk of the tree.
No, they're coming out of the trunk,
Let's see.
kind of like a palm tree,
A
sort of
banana.
like a sort of like a palm tree. The palms come out right out of the trunk.
Oh, interesting. According to Food and Agriculture, the banana plant is not a tree.
Oh, okay.
Huh. It is a giant herbaceous plant with an apparent trunk that bends without breaking. It has an underground stem.
How about is a palm tree a tree?
Um,
Let me Google that.
this is very interesting.
Okay. I just Googled palm trees. While often called trees, palm trees are not technically trees in the bot, 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 botanical, botanical sense. They are classified as monocots, more closely related to grasses, bamboo, and corn than to traditional trees like oaks or pines.
Very interesting. I've learned something new
Okay.
today. I
Traditional
always thought that a
trees,
banana is considered a tree, but in Jewish law, it's not considered a tree. But here it seems to be that bananas and palm trees are not necessarily considered trees according to botanics either.
traditional trees have a vascular cambium, I don't know what that means, that allows for secondary growth, resulting in increased trunk width.
Hmm. Okay.
Okay. Palm trunks are not composed of wood in the same way as a dicotys. They are made up of tightly packed old petali bases that don't have bark. I don't know what petali means, but it says it's not wood.
Very interesting. Which is funny because I think that according to Jewish law, the palm tree would be a tree because you have the stem and then you have a branch, and off of the branch comes the dates.
We're talking about a date tree or a palm tree.
A date palm. A dates grow on palm. It's like one of the types of palm trees, a species, subspecies of palm trees.
Let's see. Is a
Is a date palm a tree? No.
date tree a tree?
Okay. So if we look over here at the images of a date palm, you see how we have a stem. Off of the stem come these branches, and
Okay.
these branches. Mhm.
A date palm is considered a tree.
Is considered a tree.
Yeah.
That's interesting because my Google said no.
I googled is a date palm a tree, and the AI overview says yes, a date palm is considered a tree.
Huh, because mine says date palms are part of the palm family. So all date palms are palm trees, but not all palm trees are date trees. And therefore,
So much for
if it's a
AI.
palm tree, then based on what we just said, that a palm tree is not considered a palm, is not considered a tree. Interesting.
Maybe it's not considered. Maybe the difference is that a date palm isn't really a palm.
But apparently, a date palm is. It's one of the subspecies. So what we see here is very interesting. So I want to address the point that you made. First of all, it's interesting to see that in botanical calculations as well, a banana tree is not considered a tree, which is in line with what we've learned from the Talmud. But the halachic definition, let's look. Um, we'll get there soon. The Talmud gives a definition for what is considered a tree according to Jewish law. But the question is, one of the words is gavza, and that gavza could mean either the branch or the trunk. So the question is, are we translating gavza as trunk or are we translating it as branch? Um, so a plant whose leaves come out of its roots is not considered a tree, which would be a banana tree, for example. The banana tree, the leaves create the trunk. It seems, at least, from what I'm understanding. So the leaves would come straight from the roots, and therefore it's not a tree. Also, the fact that it does not endure from year to year, it dies and then grows again, that also would cause it to not be considered a tree. So now that we have the background in place, the question is, what do we do practically with these hearts of palm? In light of these two opinions, the methods used for modern heart of palm production would seem to create a dispute as to the halachic status of these trees. According to the Rosh, since the roots remain in the ground from year to year and produce new shoots annually, the palm would be classified as a tree, and its primary fruit would potentially be ha'etz, who gives forth fruit from the tree. And if the primary fruit of this, um, if the primary fruit of this tree would be the branches, then the blessing would be on those branches. The blessing would be who creates fruit from the tree. The issue with that they don't bring up here is that we just said that the fruits have to come from the branches. If the branch is the fruit, then the fruit is coming from the stem, from the trunk of the tree, and not from a branch. Sorry, that was about the leaves, not about the fruit. Okay. Okay. So if we hold that the categorization of a tree in Jewish law, that in order to be considered a tree according to Judaism, the roots have to remain and the trunk
This all leads to important question though.
go ahead.
There, when these were written, they had virtually no knowledge of botany. Today we do. So do we go by what we know to be a fact today, or do we go to what they believed 1,000 years ago?
That is a great question. That is a very broad question. And it's a question that is not only as it comes to the blessings over the tree, but is a question that pertains to many matters in Judaism. And the
Today
answer
we,
is short. The answer is short is that we go based on what the Torah says, because the Torah doesn't change.
but it's not the
And
Torah, it's the Talmud.
the Talmud is so when I say the Torah, I refer generally to Torah knowledge, not to the five books of Moses in this context. So whether it's the oral tradition or whether it's the written tradition, it doesn't change. There are some things that do not no longer apply, or if circumstances change, then the rules apply differently. For example, Maimonides gives a special diet. Maimonides is a codifier of Jewish law, and he says that this is a diet you should eat. If you look at that diet and you would try to eat it today, you would not be very healthy at all. So the question is, how do we reconcile that with the fact that we know that Judaism does not change, and the Torah doesn't change, and the rules of the Torah never change? So how do we reconcile that? And the answer is very simple. Their bodies were different than ours today. If our bodies were the same as they were 1,000 years ago in that time, then yes, and our movement and our exercise, etc., would be, and our culture would be the same as it was then, that diet would work for us. But because today we live in a different time, the medicines that are brought down in the Talmud don't work for our bodies anymore. But when it comes to actual laws regarding different classifications of things, or I'll give an example that's very easy to see. We talk about the laws of kosher. So we are supposed to try and understand everything as much as we can, yet also to know that the Torah is God's will and wisdom as He created it for us to understand, both the written law and the oral law, the written tradition and the oral tradition. So it's important to try and understand it, and it's also important to know that as much as we try to understand it, this is not an understandable concept. This is a concept that is a godly concept, which He put into words that we can understand. So when it comes to the laws of kosher, you'll have many people who will tell you that the reason why pork is not allowed is because the pigs eat filth and they're very dirty animals and they eat garbage, and therefore it's not healthy, and therefore you shouldn't eat it. However, today, where pigs are farmed in wonderful, pristine conditions, right? You have someone barn raising or pasture fed, free range pigs, which are clean and bathed every day, and they're very clean animals. They should be allowed. And the answer is no. God said that pigs are not allowed, the pigs are not allowed. So the question becomes, at what point do things um what things can we say that this is the times have changed and therefore the rules do not work in these circumstances? And at what point do we say that this is the rules, this is how they are, and there's no compromising? And the answer to that is, in order to understand how to apply the rules and where to apply the rules, you have to be a master of Torah knowledge. But when I say master of Torah knowledge, I mean that you have to have gone through the entire Talmud with all of the commentaries, as well as the medieval commentaries and the contemporary commentaries. And then it will be very clear to you and you'll understand the pathways to to conclude how things are today. That's why we have ordained rabbis who hopefully are following the pathways that were given to Moses, that were passed down from generation to generation in terms of how to apply the Jewish law to every new example that comes up. Now, that was in very short, but I hope that it was helpful.
Okay.
So,
Go to pineapples. I don't think
uh,
did
pineapples
they
we're going to get too soon. Pineapples we're going to get too soon. So the question is, number one, is it considered wood or is it considered a fruit? And even if it is considered a fruit, is it considered a tree or a bush? If it's considered a tree, then perhaps the blessing would be who brings fruit forth from the tree. However, since the branches or body of the tree do not last, it's not considered a tree, and the blessing on its fruit would be who brings forth fruit from the ground, Hadama. It can be, so because they cut down the tree every year, the branches of the tree do not last. They harvest them every year. It can be argued, however, that the status of a tree should be judged by its natural progression as opposed to agricultural practice, in which case, even according to Rashi, it would be classified as a tree. So the question is, what do we do? Do we look at the tree as what they do, that they chop it down for the hearts of palm, and therefore this tree was planted in order that it should be chopped down every year, and therefore it's not considered a tree because it doesn't last from year to year? Or do we say, one second, it's a palm tree, and if you would have left it and not chopped it down, it would have continued to grow? Despite the possibility that hearts of palm are considered a fruit of a tree, the blessing would be Ha'adama, who brings forth fruit from the ground. This is based on the Mishnah that we're going to get to in probably 3 weeks' time, that states that any fruit of the ground whose halachic status as a tree fruit is unclear gets the blessing of Ha'adama. The reason is because if you make a blessing who brings forth fruit from the ground and you set it on a fruit of a tree, you still have made the correct blessing. Because although the sages instituted a more specific blessing of Ha'etz, who brings forth fruit from the tree for tree fruit, the blessing of Ha'adama, which refers to the fruit of the ground, ultimately includes tree fruit as well, as they also grow from the ground, and that is where they get their sustenance from. So that's where it comes to hearts of palm. Now let's look at pineapple. Pineapple is something that I'm really not familiar with. So let's quickly look. Oh, wow, this is
did
taking
they
longer than I thought it would.
did medieval rabbis know about pineapples? Probably not.
I don't know, but what I do know is that we have, meaning the general rules we have, and now we have to
There's a pineapple
see how
palm
to
too.
application. Yeah. Is a pineapple like a baby palm tree? These
Next
look
to the
like bushes. They're very small.
right.
Here they're calling it a pineapple plant.
I
It
think the
has a
pineapple
very
pop
small,
doesn't actually got pineapples. I think it's called that because it looks kind of like a pineapple at the top.
right. So here it looks like there's a very short stem and the pineapple grows on top of it. So if it's a tree, it's a very small tree. Okay, let's look how they explain it. Another fruit whose proper blessing is questionable is the pineapple. Pineapple is a perennial herb with long, stiff leaves in a circular cluster. A fruit grows from a stem that emerges out of the center of the cluster. After that, the plant sends out tendrils that grow into new plants. The new plants remain connected to the parent plant. These new plants grow their own fruits as well, and eventually send out their own shoots, which grow into new plants. Left alone, this would continue indefinitely. However, as these side shoots continue to perpetuate, their fruit gets smaller due to overcrowding of plants, making it inefficient to maintain. Modern commercial pineapple growers uproot the entire field and replant it every 3 years. So the first consideration is that the stem upon which the fruit grows does not last from year to year. As discussed above, the Rosh rules that only the roots need to last, but Rashi says that if the branches do not produce new fruit every year, it is not classified as a tree. In the case of the pineapple, the body of the plant lasts, but the stem, which is the branch that the fruit actually grows from, does not. Whether this unusual reality of the plant lasting but the fruit-bearing branch not producing again would be considered a tree according to Rashi is a subject of dispute. So Rashi did not see a pineapple. And the question is, would he have said the same thing he said if he would have seen a pineapple? Because is there anything else that has a branch which dies every year, but the rest of the tree remains intact? One major point of debate is whether Rashi requires the actual branch to produce new fruits, or whether a trunk that can produce new fruits is sufficient. There are several other points discussed by the codifiers regarding pineapple. The common theme for all of these considerations is based upon the essential difference between the fruit of a tree and the fruit of a ground. A plant which is not classified as a tree is seen in Jewish law as serving merely as a conduit for the nutrition that enables the growth of the fruit and does not have its own significance. Trees, however, are significant entities. Okay. So if the plant is only there to give nutrition to the vegetable, then it's considered a vegetable. But if the plant itself is a significant entity on its own, that would be considered a tree. We therefore view the tree as the primary source of the fruit because it has its own significant entity, albeit aided by the ground. In order for a tree to be considered significant enough to qualify as the source, it must meet certain criteria. The first and foremost being that which the Gemara states that it remains from year to year. The Nishmas Adam says that a tree trunk must be strong and woody. If it's soft and flexible, it is not considered a tree. The Radvaz posits that a plant that bears fruit in its first year is not considered a tree. The reason for this is that if the fruit is produced so early in the plant's development before the plant itself is fully mature, that's indicative that the plant is not a significant contributor to the growth of the fruit. In such a case, the plant is not considered a tree, and the primary source of these fruits is the ground. The Birkei Yosef says that if the fruits decline in quality from year to year early in its life, the plant is not a tree. Both of these qualities are also based on the idea that a tree must be a significant entity to be considered the primary source of the fruit. A plant that naturally lacks the vitality to produce quality fruit year after year is not significant enough to be considered a tree. The Chazon Ish rules that a plant that does not last for 3 years is not a tree. Here again, a short-lived tree does not have the independent significance to be regarded as a tree according to the Jewish law. Trees that only survive year to year in the tropics but would not survive a winter are not durable enough to be considered a tree. The criterion for survival is based upon the tree's ability to survive a winter in the Holy Land of Israel. So if we look at all of those criterion, many of those are lacking in the pineapple plant. The fruit grow in the first year and get smaller from year to year. The plants are not kept for more than 3 years, and they would not survive the winter outside of the tropical climate. Many of the aforementioned criteria are subject to dispute. Additionally, as mentioned above, it is questionable if trees should be judged by their natural growth patterns or by modern cultivation's method, thus making the 3-year issue questionable as well. Nonetheless, the general rule remains that when there is a question whether the appropriate blessing would be who creates fruit of the tree or who creates fruit of the ground, The blessing over fruits of the ground is recited as it is more inclusive. Based on these criteria, the appropriate blessing on a pineapple would be who creates fruit from the ground. The Talmud teaches in Bava Kama 38, we're going to get there in a long time, that one who wishes to be pious needs to learn the laws of blessings. These laws can be complex and require focus and expertise to ensure that one is making the proper blessing. This article will hopefully shed light on some of the principles of these laws, opening the door for further study. Isn't that fascinating?
Mm-hmm.
For the record, pineapple is not a tree. It's a fruit that grows from a plant.
According to science. Well,
You're
the
right.
question is, how are we referring to a tree in Jewish law? So there are many people, there are those who say that according to Jewish law as well, it would be considered a plant. It's not hard and woody, it's soft and flexible. The branch doesn't last from year to year, the stem, the fruits get smaller every year. So in science created their own way of determining what is considered a tree and what is considered a plant. And within the plants, there are many different sections and subsections as well. Judaism has different criterion for whether we're considering it a tree. The main basis of the criteria is is the tree a conduit for the nutrition to come from the earth to the fruit, or is the tree its own entity as well? If the tree is its own entity, then its own sturdy, significant entity, then then it will be considered a tree. So then what comes all the details of what makes it considered significant. So we have the one that we're going to learn soon from the Talmud, and then we have various other criteria. And the question is, pineapples, bananas, hearts of palm, where do they fall into those criteria? So for the most part, science and Torah will agree on most trees and most plants, but there are some areas in between where the objective of science and the objective of Torah might be different objectives, and therefore we will come to different conclusions. What I find fascinating is taking all these concepts that we're learning in the Talmud and turning them practically into a very practical application. We will not be doing a Wednesday class tomorrow. I have to take Mendel to the dentist. Wishing you a wonderful day, and God willing, we'll see you either on Shabbat morning or next week, Tuesday.
Rabbi?
Yeah,
I'm going away on Thursday, Rabbi. I'll be gone for 12 days.
12 days. Where are you headed?
I'm going to see my son's in-laws
Where's
in
that?
San Francisco.
In San
And
Francisco.
and then
Okay.
I'm going to Sonoma to see my sister and then to LA to see my brother.
I hope
San
you have fun. I hope
San
everything goes
Francisco would be
smoothly,
nice this time of
and I
year.
hope you enjoy it.
Thank you.
I'm looking at the botanical definition of a tree. It's actually kind of similar to the Talmudic one.
What does
A
it say?
woody perennial plant with a single self-supporting main stem that supports branches and leaves.
So the stem supports the branches and the leaves. So according to the botanical as well, if the leaves come directly from the roots, it would not be considered a tree. The leaves have to be coming from out of the stem or out of the branches. Okay.
However, there isn't a universally agreed upon precise botanical definition, and some plants, commonly called trees, like palms and papayas, don't always fit the criteria strictly based on woodiness.
Aha. Okay. So it
Hmm.
seems like in science, there's also questions.
Oh, definitely.
Good. Okay. This was a great one. I enjoyed it a lot. Thank you for coming along for the ride. Thank you for being
Mhm.
um, what's the word? I love these Talmud classes and how they're interactive and people asking questions and challenging, and I'm loving it. We're going on 3 years now, probably 2.5.
You know, yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Belester, for joining. Thank you, Zalman, for joining, and we'll catch you on the next one.
And
Okay.
Rita's leaving too on Thursday.
Who's leaving on
Going to
Thursday?
Atlanta. Rita.
She's going to Atlanta this Thursday. And
Yeah.
you're leaving on this Thursday as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I hope Michael will be there on Friday. Take care.
Uh,
All the best.
all right.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.